back to Sense and Sensitivity. Today I want to talk about my rosacea triggers. I've divided them into 4 categories, which are food, topical products, environmental, and internal. So let's get right into it. So the first category is topicals. Topicals are what I consider things I put on my skin. I found over the years that these products irritate my skin the most. The first is acids. I'm talking about exfoliating acids. So this doesn't include things like hyaluronic acid. It's alpha hydroxy and beta hydroxy acids. So that's your glycolic, your lactic, mandelic, and salicylic. In general, those acids just irritate my skin. They strip away the moisture too much, and they just leave me feeling red and raw. They also, for a lot of people, can leave a slight tingling sensation, but for me, they can leave a burning sensation that lasts a really long time. Coupled with my issues already with the burning and stinging sensation, it is just not a good combination. So I totally stay away from acids. The next topical is fragrance, and I'm talking artificial fragrance as well as fragrant plant extracts and essential oils. I'll have a whole episode talking about my stance on fragrance because it's really changed over the years, but suffice it to say that I avoid any product with essential oils, synthetic or even natural fragrances. Also watch out for words like parfum, P-A-R-F-U-M, and also be careful for plant extracts such as rose water and other flower waters, which, while soothing for some people, can be irritating for others. Niacinamide. Now this is a tricky ingredient because it's promoted so much for people with rosacea. A lot of dermatologists recommend the ingredient niacinamide to help with flushing, but in my experience, as I've tested it several times, it always leaves my skin irritated and I'll develop patches of red bumps and redness for days, and it won't go away for a long time, even after I've stopped applying the product, so I've learned that niacinamide is not for me. The last topical I want to talk about is foaming cleansers. So there are so many different ways to wash your skin, and I'll have a whole episode about my cleanser journey. But for me, foaming cleansers just leave my skin way too dry, and they disrupt the barrier. Like I've said many times, rosacea often has to do with a dysfunctional skin barrier. So for me, coupling my rosacea with my dryness, washing my face with a foaming cleanser, even if it's gentle and unscented, just does not work for my skin, and I'll feel really tight and irritated afterwards, even if I've put on serums or oils or moisturizers. So I completely stay away from foaming cleansers at this point. The next category is environmental triggers. So environmental triggers for me means things from the outdoors. And for me, the things that affect me the most are heat and sun, which I couple together. And those are just an immediate cause for redness in my skin. So it doesn't mean that I never go outdoors when it's sunny, and I live in Southern California, so it's pretty hard to avoid the sun. I just am really careful to wear sunscreen and a protective hat and other protective clothing. And I never try to lay out in the sun or spend too long of a time. So the other environmental trigger for me is pollution. My rosacea got a lot worse when I moved to my current location, which is right near a major international airport. Now, only recently did I come to conclude that pollution is a big trigger for my skin, and that's because due to the COVID epidemic, a lot of the planes have stopped flying, which has meant less pollution in the area in which I live. And I've noticed my skin has become a lot calmer, and a lot of my bumps have gone away since the planes have stopped flying, keeping everything else in my life the same. So that leads me to think that pollution is a big factor for me, although I can't conclusively say so. The next category is food. Now, if you watched my earlier video, you'll learn that my rosacea journey has been coupled with my digestive journey too, healing my gut and finding out my food triggers and allergies. So I've gone through a pretty different process, and it might not be necessarily what you need to go through to find your food triggers. So for me, red wine right off the bat is a huge trigger. The minute I take a sip of red wine, my cheeks will get bright red and I will feel really hot, and it'll last the whole rest of the day, and sometimes even until the next day. The other food item is just any foods that are spicy. For me, they immediately trigger a flare-up, and again, just like with the wine, I'll get bright red cheeks, possibly a whole face that's red, runny nose, and a hot burning sensation that'll last for a really long time. The last two things that really trigger me are beets and gluten. Now, these are things that I didn't come to discover until after going through my journey with SIBO, working with an acupuncturist and gastroenterologist, and going through an elimination diet. Now, as I mentioned in my other video, that was a really long and challenging process. I'm not suggesting you need to go through an elimination diet, but it is a good thing to start taking note and bringing more awareness to when you're getting digestive and or skin disruptions or irritations after you eat food. The last category are internal things. So for me, those are stress. That's a huge component in my rosacea. When I'm stressed and not sleeping well or not sleeping enough, my skin is just at an overall heightened level of irritation. It'll be more red, more splotchy. I'm more prone to getting the burning and stinging sensation, and it'll just feel uncomfortable. It'll feel more tight. It'll feel hotter. Just all the problems that I go through will be magnified when I'm stressed out. The other internal factor are my hormones. Over the years, as I've journaled and taken note, I've noticed that there are 2 times during each month that are related to my cycle when my skin is more irritated, red, and even when I'll get breakouts. The 2 times of the month that my skin feels more irritated are when I'm ovulating and when I'm menstruating. I'm not exactly sure what the hormone fluctuations are at those 2 times during my cycle, but whatever's going on always leaves my skin feeling more red, more raw, more sensitive, and more prone to breakouts, sometimes more oily as well. So how can you go about finding out what your triggers are? Get a journal and start documenting everything. That is my best suggestion. That's what I've done, that's what's been recommended to me, and it just really works. It's a process and it can be tedious, but the more you start documenting, the more awareness you'll bring to all of the things that are affecting you, and the more you'll start to notice. So, for example, and this isn't a real entry because I can't find my old journal, but when I was going through my elimination diet and afterwards when I was reintroducing foods, I would document every time something upset my stomach and or my skin. And after a period of time, I was able to go back and read through a few weeks of food entries and start noticing patterns for certain foods that would pop up every time I was irritated. That's how I discovered that beets were one of the things that really didn't sit well with me. So it looks kind of like this, right? So I put the date and it says, today my face turned red and my stomach bloated at lunch. And this is what I ate. Rice with sauteed greens, beets and roast chicken with butter, salt, and pepper. So it's really important that you document everything you eat as to the best that you can. Of course, if you're at a restaurant, you might not know all the ingredients they put in something, but even including things like the seasonings you use will help you in the long run make those connections, find those patterns, and figure out and eliminate the things that are irritating you. So I had journal entries like this, and after a couple weeks, I realized every time I had eaten beets, I would get a flare-up. And once I avoided those, but ate everything else in those meals, I was totally fine. You can also use a journal for the other types of triggers I mentioned, so I would do this with skincare too. And I would test one product with a new ingredient at a time over the course of several weeks to really see how my skin reacted to it. And I would document in my journal what happened. So that means if I purchased something with acids because I wanted to exfoliate my skin or brighten my skin, and I bought some sort of soothing serum or something with niacinamide, I wasn't testing all of those products at the same time. I would just try the acid one time, wait a few days, see how my skin reacted, try it again, and then try it over the course of a few weeks and go from there. I'll have a whole other video talking about my patch testing philosophy and how I go about it, but suffice it to say, when you're testing ingredients, limit what you're testing so that you really know what it might be that's affecting your skin. Go slowly and document. So I hope you found this video helpful. Comment below on what's irritating you, or if you have questions on how to go about documenting and finding your triggers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Talk soon.